So it is 6:30, so we should start. So Nirali will start with a word of prayer, or Prakriti had said that she will do it next time. So is she
Yes, she'll
there?
be late, so we will request Nirali to do the
Yes.
prayer.
Yes. Yes.
वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीर पराई जाने रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीर पराई जाने रे। पर दुखे उपकार करे तोए मन अभिमान न आने रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। सकल लोक मां सौने वंदे निंदा न करे के नीरे। वाच काच मन निश्चल राखे धन धन जननी तेनी रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीर पराई जाने रे। थैंक यू।
Very good. Awesome.
I was looking at some of your slides, um, uh, and when I looked at the listen slide, and in that also the when I looked at 45% as a time spent on listening, and I remember you talked about you are being taught how to write or uh, imparted on the listening, which is 45%. And it's true from that angle in any communication. Um, the listening is very important part, and that brings an understanding, and that understanding is something would help to uh, communicate or receive the message well. And so such a beautiful message which came out of that particular slide, and that really put a good image impression on my mind, and I thought that people must realize. So this is where we are talking about,
Yes.
right? So great. With that, let's say small brief note from my side as to such an interesting or a wonderful thing to keep on listening from you. We'll be very. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to your session now. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And the slide that Patel sir was referring is on your screen. In fact, about 75% of our communication, no one taught us. And hence, if you look at the skills that are in need today, persuasion skills, presentation skills, people skills, negotiation skills, influencing skills, problem solving skills, conflict management skills, collaboration. Look at any leadership skills, look at any of the emotional intelligence, look at any of the top 10, 15 skills that World Economic Forum is talking about, that each one of us should be working upon learning. I think so the backbone of all this is communication, and that is something that we don't take seriously, right? And I have interacted with so many people, and there are people who say that, okay, communication, I know it all, right? It is not like that. We need to take this extremely seriously, right? And so let us start, and I would want some of you to spend maybe a minute or two in explaining what do you understand by the quote which is there on the slide. Again, a very important slide that will help us set the context about what we would want to learn today. Anyone who would want to throw some light on this particular quotation? Dialogue is all about discussion with the intent to understand, not debate with the intent to win. Would anyone want to throw some light on this?
Can I say something?
Absolutely, absolutely. You don't need any permission.
Acha, this dialogue, what it is written, that is preferably we can say correct. Preferably because it depends on the person who is telling to whom and what intention he is carrying to communicate to the other person. Vis-a-vis, the person who is listening to him is also important, that in what context he is listening to that person.
Okay.
Like we can say, presently we are listening to you in this session with an intent to get ourselves more educated with so many other factors.
That's right. That's right.
Other example, we can say, suppose we go to any Mahabharat Katha, or we can see listening to some holistic person. That time our logic of attending that, listening to that particularly is just to grab something what is good from that particular conversation.
Okay, good, good, good. Thank you, Pradeep ji. Thank you for throwing some light on this particular point. Yes, we are in this session to learn. Yes, we attend so many different maybe moral teaching sessions on moral teaching and other sessions with an intention to absorb as much as we possibly can. But that is more of a download. That is more of an instruction. That is more of guidance that someone is giving us. Now, the context that I want to share here is, let us say you are in an office situation, you are in a situation where there is a lot at stake, and the two people involved in the discussion, or the maybe more than two people involved in the discussion, what is the intent with which we discuss? Are we discussing to find a better way? Are we discussing so that the best possible option gets chosen, or are we debating with the intention that I am right and you are wrong? Right. And in this series, we are also going to talk about assertiveness. That will come maybe after a few Saturdays. When we talk about assertiveness, it is so important that we remain assertive. We never become arrogant, right? So when we are listening to someone in that discussion, let that discussion be a discussion. Let us not degrade it and make it into a debate or an argument, right? So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to share with you is, when you are discussing, when you are getting into that dialogue, it is win-win. And when you are getting into a debate or an argument, it is win-lose, right? And win-lose or lose-win as an approach is never, ever beneficial, not just from a communication point of view, but from any other angle that you may want to consider. And one more time, want to share with you what we learned last Saturday, that one of the biggest challenges in communication is that we listen to reply, not to understand, right? And let's deepen our understanding on this. And thank you, Pradeep ji, for your inputs on this. And very interesting session.
Sorry, one second, sir.
Yes, Pradeep ji.
Sir, what I understand, that the listening power of the judge, you can say.
That's right. That's right. And
he has to has the very good listening power.
which most people don't have. Right, and we have something called a preconceived notion, and we are going to talk about that in the barriers of communication. What are the possible barriers to communication? We sometimes operate with a conditioned mind. We operate with some notions which may be right, which may be not right. We operate from perspectives, and it is important that we remain flexible and don't let perspective, um, different perspective color our judgment in the communication that is happening. So good point, Pradeep ji. When you talk about a judge should ideally be listening. The fifth level of listening that we saw last time, we saw the 5 levels, and the fifth level is listening from the other person's perspective, other person's frame of reference, not our frame of reference, which generally does not happen. We are either into selective listening, either we are pretending to listen, either we are actively listening, but yet we have our own, you know, what should I say, autobiography that is being played, and we listen from our frame of reference. One more time, when you are listening with empathy, you are listening without judging. You are listening without taking a stand or a stance. You don't either agree with that person, nor are you disagreeing with that person. We are absorbing that situation or that communication which is happening. So let's go further into this, and thank you, Pradeep ji, for that input. Right. So let's look at what's there on the slide. We generally choose to listen or not to listen. Can you tell me some situations where we choose to listen and we choose not to listen? What are those some uh, situations where we listen or we choose not to listen? Any thoughts? वो कब होता है कि हम सुनते हैं और वो कब होता है कि हम नहीं सुनते हैं, और वो चॉइस हम एक्सरसाइज करते हैं.
Sir, when we are listening to any information that is useful to us, then we choose
Very
to
good.
listen. And
Very
when
nice.
sometimes it is not our, it's not in our benefit, we don't listen.
That's a good answer. That's a very good answer, Shivam. Thank you, Shivam, for that answer. Super, very nice. Right. So when the information that has been shared with us is in our perception useful or not useful, right? So good point. Very nice. Anyone else would want to add to what Shivam said? And don't write in the chat box. I prefer that you unmute yourself and speak. That is my request to you.
Sir, interest.
Correct. Interest in whom? The person or the topic?
Topic.
Or both? Right. So when we are
Yes, sir.
listening to sound, yeah, it can be both. The
It may
topic
be
and
both
the
as
person.
well. Yeah.
Right, it can be both, right? So if you have your favorite movie star, whosoever is your favorite movie star, if he or she is saying something, you pretty much would want to listen to that person, right? So if you like that person, you certainly would want to listen to that person. So both the person and the topic, right? So that's a good answer. Very nice answer. Anyone else would want to share? कब हम सुनते हैं और कब हम नहीं सुनते, वो डिसीजन हम कब लेते हैं?
I can
Sir,
try.
Please make it
Oh,
interactive. Thank you.
go ahead. Go ahead. Somebody else
Oh,
said. Go ahead.
oh, okay. Yeah, sir, I was just telling that it was very nice of you that you mentioned that in my perception, if it interests me or not. For example, a lot of times our parents share actually useful information, but we tend to like ignore it. We just listen it and then we don't like understand it. So yeah, our own perception of how important it is to us, I think that also matters.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Wonderful point. On that point, let me share something that might amuse you, and you may relate to it. It's like, when you're growing up, when you're in your 20s, you think your parents are wrong, and by the time you grow up and you have children, your children start thinking that you are wrong, right? So that is one thought that crossed my mind when you shared this. And the other thought that crossed my mind is, as parents, at least I can tell it for myself, as a parent, I'm giving all those instructions and information to my daughter. Those instructions and information, when my parents gave me, I refused and rejected them, right? So that is how life is. It comes a one full circle. But that's a very practical and a very valid input. Thank you for doing that, right? Thank you for sharing that. Yes, Gagandeep, you were wanting to share something.
Yeah, thank you, AB. So I was saying, when our fundamental value system is challenged, that's
That's
when we don't listen, and we put up walls and we try to win the argument. That's
That's
one
right.
point.
That's a good point. That's a very, very good point, right? So great answers. I hope all of you are making notes. Don't depend upon the recording of this session that you will refer to it. I suggest that you should make notes. I can see Aparajita raising her hand. So please share.
Sir, sometimes when you just connect with that person, then also you listen. Sir, I would share my experience. I don't know whether you remember me or not. I attended one of your sessions, like where you took in how to give an interview, personality development. You took a session. At that time, I took your class, and for 6 to 7 days, I attended the class, and I could connect with you so much. You won't believe I I didn't get your like any information. I didn't get ever after that. I searched you in Facebook. I texted there, and one of your students, maybe he texted me back, and then he added me in WhatsApp group, and that is how I came to know about your session. So, like, I found you, sir. I discovered you in my own
Thank you.
like
Thank you.
thing.
Thank you so much. Feel
I
honored.
connected with you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Aparajita. Feel honored and humbled to listen to that. I'm not very active on the social media. So if anyone is texting me on Facebook, I don't, I'm not on Facebook. So I'm there, but I'm not on Facebook. So sorry for that inconvenience. And Ashish, who is there on the call, he's sweet enough and kind enough to help me with some messages that come on the Instagram handle, right? So thank you, Ashish, for doing that. And so sorry for the inconvenience of Parajita, but I consciously stay away
No,
from
sir.
social
I
media.
finally, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I finally got your sessions. Like, I'm really so grateful.
Thank you. Thank you. Praise God for that.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
to you. Thank you to Ashish also.
Yes. So big thank you to Ashish. I did not do anything. So
Most
it's
welcome.
Ashish. So thank you for doing that. Right. So great points. Thank you for those points. Let's look at some of the points that we
Hello,
discussed.
Abhi?
Right. So just yes,
Yeah, I would like to add one more thing also.
please add.
Actually, most of the things are covered, which are shared. Why we choose to listen. So I have observed that after learning all the things, sometimes we also listen to give respect also, because at that time we don't need to listen. There are some situations, but we want to give respect to that person, and it is needed that we listen to that person just for the sake of listening. So
Fantastic.
for
Very
that
good.
purpose also.
Fantastic. Very good. Very good. That's a great point, right? So respect is a verb. It is in action, right? So when you listen to that person and not just listen, and then you do what that person is asking you, suggesting, recommending you to do, that is respect in action. Fantastic response. Thank you so much, right? So we enjoy or agree with what is being shared, or when do we listen? Few instances, let me share it with you. Number one, when there is a speaker's prejudice or preference, right? And like some of you already said, if you connect with that person, if you like that person, you would want to listen to that person, right? Like so, for example, if Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam's interviews is happening, I would switch off everything and I would want to listen to what he has to say. I have never met him. I have only been inspired by him, by the books that he has written, the thoughts that he always shares, and the life that he has lived. Right. So if a Sachin Tendulkar is speaking, I would want to listen because there's so much of wisdom that you can gain from sports. Right. And there are a few people when they speak, I would want to listen, and I would ensure that there is no distraction which is distracting me at that point in time. The second is not in a particular order, so I've jumbled this up, is when there is a threat to our core values, we don't listen. If someone is trying to change our core values, they don't listen to us. For example, I've shared this many times. Some of you would have heard this before, so pardon me for the repetition. I just cannot stand someone who is smoking. I just cannot tolerate that. Even if I'm in my car and if I see some youngsters smoking, I just cannot control myself. I'll park my car somewhere. I'll get down. If someone else is driving that car, I'll tell that person to park it somewhere. I get down and I talk to that person. And I have noticed that when I'm going and talking to them, I'm actually confronting them in terms of their values. And I can see at times that there is a resistance that is being created, and they are not actually wanting to listen because I'm challenging that what they're doing, it does not resonate with their traditional values, personal values, or their core values. When I see someone drinking, I just cannot. Something stirs me from inside, and I go and talk to that person and said, "Hello, आपको पता भी है आप क्या कर रहे हो?" And when there are people who use abusive languages, I just cannot tolerate that, and I would want to go and confront them that जिस जबान से आप अपनी माँ का नाम लेते हो, जिस जबान से आप अपने ईश्वर का नाम लेते हो, उस जबान से गाली कैसे निकल सकती है, उस जबान में तंबाकू कैसे जा सकता है, उस जबान में दारू कैसे जा सकता है. It is something which something happens to me, and I would want to confront that person. While there are people who accept it, who acknowledge that yes sir, what you're saying is right, and there are some people who would create a wall, and they would not listen, right? So if someone is challenging our core values, we may not want to listen, and we would want to listen if there is no threat to our core values. The person is talking, resonating, you are resonating with the values that he or she is sharing. So you connect with that person, we would listen in that instance, right? And when we talk about listening, we also talk about listening is emotionally healthy. And I have taken a session on emotional intelligence. We may want to repeat it, but emotionally it is healthy. Like one of you very rightly said, it is giving respect to that person. And when you're listening, you listen with your eyes. And in virtual setups, it is so very difficult to have the entire process of communication happening. It does not happen because the videos are off. Most of them, most of the people in a session write in the chat box. I always say, don't write in the chat box. At least there is some emotion that gets transferred through the voice that is there, right? So virtual sessions and virtual communication is definitely a big challenge, right? So we need to be conscious and cognizant of that point, right? And listening gives the other person an opportunity to vent out his or her feelings. I think I said this last time. I'm not sure whether I said it or not, so pardon me for that repetition. I believe that if we can only listen to the other person, दुनिया की 99% तकलीफें ऐसी सॉल्व हो जाएगी. सिर्फ सुन लीजिए उसको. बट हम सुनते नहीं है. कितनी बार ऐसा हुआ है कि कोई इंसान अपनी लाइफ की कुछ बात आपके साथ शेयर करने की कोशिश कर रहा है, एंड हम कहते हैं हाँ मुझे पता है मेरे साथ भी ऐसा हुआ था. तो कोई बात नहीं, कोई नहीं. आपके साथ हुआ था कि नहीं हुआ था, दैट इज नॉट द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ द कम्युनिकेशन. वो आपसे ये नहीं पूछ रहा है कि आपके साथ ये हुआ था कि नहीं हुआ था. दैट पर्सन इज टेलिंग हिज और हर एक्सपीरियंस, एंड वी डोंट लिसन. We kind of put in our own experience into that conversation, which is not respecting that person. The third point that I would want to share with you, and listen to me carefully. If we are only listening, problems can be solved. If we are talking, problems cannot be resolved. I believe challenges, problems, conflicts, whatever you would want to, the word you would want to use, we can resolve conflicts. We can manage those challenging situations by listening, by not talking. But how many times we get into an argument? How many times we get into a discussion? How many times we start replying back? How many times do we start shouting? The first slide, the discussion, when I'm entering into the discussion, what is my intent? The intent is win-win. The intent is not win-lose, which generally is the intent. So are you listening? And when you listen, you are listening at level 5, the 5th level of listening, listening with empathy. And I'm not judging that person. And if you have read books by Deepak Chopra, if not, you should read books by Deepak Chopra. He writes fantastic books on the spiritual side of it. And there is one book which talks about the 7 laws of spirituality or something like that. I don't remember the exact title, but you can search it, you will get it. In that book, he says that let us practice 1 hour of being non-judgmental. पूरे हफ्ते में हम My request is if all of you can keep yourself muted, thank you. एक हफ्ते में हम 1 घंटा किसी को जज ना करें. Again, trust me, it is very, very, very difficult, right? So listening gives the opportunity for the other person to vent his or her feelings out, and वो थोड़ा emotionally हल्का feel करता है. Yes, Gagandeep, I can see your hand raised.
वो थैंक यू. अभी आपने वो कोर वैल्यूज का जो एक्सप्लेन किया था ना, आई जस्ट मेड मी थिंक अ लिटिल मोर. एंड what I was thinking was कि when we are emotionally triggered, no, that's when we stop listening, and we can only listen when we are emotionally balanced. So
Okay.
anything that can emotionally trigger us would be something that really is attached to our identity. For example, our religion or our political affiliation or our core value system or our favorite sports team. All of these things, when they are challenged, that's when we get emotionally triggered. And once we are emotionally triggered, I feel our listening capacity goes down. And that
it not just goes down, but nosedives. That's a great point, Gagan. Thank you for that point. And what I just did, can anyone point out what I just did when Gagan was sharing? And I did that deliberately.
Appreciated his efforts.
Okay. And then that is a good part of it. I did something which is not so good, and we should not do it when someone is speaking.
You interrupted.
Correct. Thank you for that input. I interrupted him. I did not allow him to complete his sentence. Before he completed his sentence, I, in my mind, made a judgment, and then I said what I had to say. I did not allow the speaker to complete the sentence. How many times we do this? I think so. We do this all the time. Listen. And listening requires huge amount of patience. And patience is something that is running dry nowadays, right? So thank you for pointing that up. I interrupted him, and I did that on intent, deliberately. I did that, but we should not interrupt someone when he or she is talking. Yeah, and this was something that I agreed with him. I appreciated with him. What if I don't agree with him? This is an office situation. There is a project that needs to be done. The deadline of that project is near, it is on our head, and there is pressure from everywhere. What happens then? We say, okay, tu jo bol raha hai, chup rahe, ye kuch nahi hone wala, tu aisa kar. The tone changes. And then what happens to respect? So if you take the value of respect and take a behavior in that, a good behavior, if you talk about the value of respect, would be, even when there is difference of perspective, we will always have respect. That's a good behavior to have. And when you work in an office setup, when you work on project teams, when you work on critical project teams, when you have a project which is deadline driven and there is a lot of pressure, what happens to listening? This is an ideal situation. You are listening to someone that you want to listen. You are in this call by choice, and everything is fine. But outside this call, when we live life, life is going to challenge us. Emotionally, I get triggered. And when I emotionally triggered, what happens? It is maybe the first, second, third, or the fourth level of listening, maybe the first level of listening, we ignore that person. And hence, emotional intelligence is such a critical, important, vital skill that each one of us has to develop. How do I ensure that someone else's behavior does not trigger me emotionally? I'll repeat. How do I ensure that someone else's statement, someone else's opinion on something which I'm very passionate about does not trigger me? How do I transform negative emotions into positive feelings? 4 elements of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-regulation. So you are getting that input, that trigger, that intuition, that here is something which is conflicting with my core values. So that's self-awareness. And the second part is self-regulation. And I like that word, regulate. Am I able to regulate my emotions? Or am I like a volcano that is just bursting out? The third is empathy, or also called social awareness. And the fourth is relationship management. Not talking about it in this session, but maybe we can take up a series on emotional intelligence. But very well said by Gagan Deep, when he says that when our emotions are triggered, we generally don't listen because we are now judging someone. And we need to practice non-judgmental, right? So thank you, Gagan, for sharing that.
AB, can I add one more point quickly?
Absolutely.
I'm so sorry for interrupting you.
Absolutely. Please.
So emotion. So what we may also what may also help us understand is that emotions are regulated in a different part of the brain, and empathy is exercised from a different part of the brain. So empathy is a very complex skill that is basically regulated through the prefrontal cortex, which is the most advanced part of the human brain. It's on the front side. But the emotions are regulated from the limbic brain, which is the old brain, the reptilian part of the brain. So most of the times, the older brain overpowers and bypasses the prefrontal cortex because it helps us survive. So that is why empathy is such hard skill to develop, because biologically we are wired that way.
That's right. Good point. Thank you for adding that technicality to the subject. Thank you, Gagandeep, and it's a great input. And for some of you who could not understand what he said, because there are some biological terms, and these are we need to understand how our brain functions. We need to understand how we respond or react to certain situations. So maybe we can have Gagandeep come and talk about it in a full-fledged session. He is a sports psychologist that did his masters from one of the top ranked universities in the US. He is a great resource, and I would encourage you to reach out to him, and maybe we can have him take up one of the sessions in this series, right? So we will leverage your knowledge and your talent, Gagan, on this platform. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, AB. That's so great. That's so kind of you. Thank you. I
And
would love to do.
he's a football fan, and we go our relations goes back a long time. I know him from the first day he started his career as a professional, right? And I have seen him grow in his professional journey, right? So when you see people grow, it's like a small baby growing, and it gives you a sense of joy that yes, here is someone who is doing really well, right? And Gagan definitely is one of those young bright boys who is doing fantastically for himself. Great. So let's move on. Second point, or rather the third point on the screen, it is empowering to be listened to. It creates strong bond. It builds interpersonal relationships. Such a wonderful statement. When I know that someone is listening to me, it gives me a sense of belongingness. And the need of belongingness is a human need. And that human need is getting fulfilled. And I believe the sense of belongingness, the understanding, the assurance that someone is understanding me, I think so is the psychological equivalent of air. हम में से कितने सारे लोग ने कितनी बार शायद खुद से कहा होगा या कोई बहुत नजदीक इंसान से आपने कहा होगा, काश मुझे कोई समझ ले, मुझे कोई समझता ही नहीं. एंड आई थिंक सो ये इमोशन हम सब ने कभी ना कभी खुद से कहा होगा या किसी बहुत करीब इंसान के साथ आपने वो इमोशन शेयर किया होगा. इट्स अ साइकोलॉजिकल इक्विवेलेंट ऑफ एयर, राइट? एंड listening is emotionally healthy. We'll look at 3 more points. We should not discriminate in our listening. Can anyone throw some light on this? What would this sentence mean to you? We should not discriminate in our listening. Anyone?
So maybe we should not be judgmental while we listen to somebody.
That's right.
We might
That's
think
right.
that
So,
our pain is more than what their pain is, but everybody's pain is different for them and it's greater for them.
that's
So
right.
we
That's
should
right.
not
That's a
be
good
judgmental.
input, Aparajita. Yes. So we should not be judging someone, right? And it's not that my pain is bigger than someone else's pain, right? Everyone is fighting his or her own battle, right? So that's a good point, Aparajita. Thank you for that. Anyone else would want to add to what Aparajita just said?
Yes, Avi.
Yes.
I think that we can add a point of, for example, if someone is speaking, sometimes it happens that because of his communication style, we may not like what he is presenting in the way he's saying something or that things. But if we are committed to listening, then we should focus our attention on what he tries to convey rather than just communication, and see the entire picture, whether
Great,
we are
Kapil.
interested in that or not. Yeah.
Very nice, Kapil. Very nice. Very, very, very good answer. Right. So you listen to that person irrespective. And the fifth level of listening talks about we are listening without judging. So I'm not discriminating. Okay, so when Patel Sahib is speaking, I will be attentive to him. If Ashish is speaking, I will not be that attentive to him. Right? So I should not be discriminating in my listening as an example. So thank you both, Parajita and Kapil, for sharing your inputs. This is one of my favorite statements as far as listening is concerned. Listening is the other part, the balanced part, or the 50% or the other half of communication. And it is often the most ignored part. And I think so the world needs to learn how to listen. Relationships are getting strained because listening is absent in that relationship. It is all about judging that person, right? And one of my favorite terms, which I keep on telling myself in the professional world, is Anand, wait. What is wait? Why am I talking? And there are a series of points. I'll create an algorithm and I'll share with you what is that algorithm that I follow, and I will suggest that you also follow. It will give you good emotional balance in your professional life, in your personal life, especially when things are, you know, tight. The pressure is heavy, when the timeline is challenging and you need to deliver results, and when there is pressure from everywhere. How do I remain emotionally balanced, right? How do I be an MS Dhoni and not become a Virat Kohli? Just to give you a visual of how two amazingly brilliant sports people control their emotions so very differently. I would rather want to be MS Dhoni and not a Virat Kohli, right? And something that I spoke about earlier, and all of you gave those fantastic inputs. Listening focuses on the speaker and not on our thoughts. So that's what listening is. Listening involves us asking questions, paraphrasing. Remember that activity that we did last time where I asked some of you that how do you drop a raw egg on a concrete floor without breaking it? You need to paraphrase. You need to ask questions, and no one has taught us how to ask questions. Neither school taught us, nor college taught us, nor the professional setup is teaching its employees how to ask questions, and that is so very important. For some of you who are interested to learn how to ask question, you can send me a WhatsApp. I'll share a couple of books with you, which I suggest that you read it, right? Yes, Aparajita, I can see your hand raised.
Sir, I have a question now. You told
Ji,
that interrupting in between is not good. I
that's right.
understood that, and that is truly something. It's good. So, can I share in this context? Can I share something my personal
Absolutely, absolutely. Don't be
opinion?
formal. Please, please, we are all here to learn together and learn from each other. Please share.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, actually, I handle classes of 50 to 60 students together, IELTS batches. So, sir, during the class, it so happens that because we are right now working from an online portal, so students, they sometimes they overwhelm. And because right now the situation is such, everyone is going through this pandemic and everything. So they draw out, and out of, I don't know, out of this impatience or sadness or whatever, they just try to pour out all their personal things in that in that webinar of 50 to 60 people. So sometimes I feel that they should not do this. So I had a student named Zareen. She started speaking out something very personal in the meeting, and then suddenly I felt that there are so many students sitting there and they might judge. Even if I am listening to her, everyone would feel like, what the shit is she's speaking right now? So I
That's
had
right. That's
stopped her in the between, and I told her that
that's
I'll
right.
work with you, I'll talk to you. We'll talk like differently, but we'll not talk right now, about this thing, whatever you're speaking. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we will not talk about this in here. So, is
So
that
that's a
kind of
good thing.
interrupting bad,
That's a
or
good thing,
it's okay?
Parajita, you did. That's a good thing that you did. And so let me clarify. When I say don't interrupt someone, it is if that person is speaking something and that is out of context, then I would want to politely tell that person, while I can understand your emotion, this may not be the right platform for you to share your emotions. Will it be okay that we connect one on one after this session? So that's a good way to tackle that situation, rather than saying that okay, this is not the time to talk about it. Don't talk, shut up, and let us move on. You may not exactly say those words, but I need to understand that the other person could be emotionally charged, and I need to give him or her that space that yes, I understand your situation. I will talk to you once we finish this part, and then make sure that you call that person, connect with him or her, and just listen to that person. So that is completing the loop. So that I would not say that is interrupting, but that I would rather say that you are pausing that person, you are telling that person, requesting that person, suggesting to that person that this is something that is a bit personal, and this may not be the right forum, this may not be the right platform for us to talk about it, because the other 50 people on the call, or whatever be the number of the people on the call, may or may not be interested in something which is so very personal to you, and this does not add value to our conversation. So politely say that, I don't think so that person would mind it, right? So two elements of it, and thank you for bringing out a very practical part which all of us face when we are facilitating sessions either online or even face to face. If you have done face to face session, I'm sure you know that there are some people who will try to derail your session. They will ask questions which are not pertaining to the topic that we are wanting to learn. So when such questions happen, what do you do, right? So how do you handle those people who want to derail that session? You will have to ensure that you take it head on and tell that person we will talk about this um, at a later time. And if you allow that person to share, what will happen? Someone else will start talking about his or her situation and emotion. Then someone else will start talking about his or her situation. And then it becomes a chaotic situation. And then the essence of that particular meeting or that session gets lost, right? So good point. Thank you for that point. I hope I'm able to explain what I thought is the right thing. Am I able to communicate with you?
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Parajita.
sir.
And
So one more query.
yes,
Last one.
no worries, no worries.
Okay, so do we listen out of fear?
Oh, yes, sometimes that's again a good question, a very good question. We do listen out of fear at times. Think of a situation which is a possible catastrophic situation, and there is some announcement that is happening, and you would be listening so that you don't miss out, because there is that emotion of fear that is driving that action of yours. So you're listening out of fear. Yes, we do listen out of fear, and those are few and far instances. But I would certainly agree that yes, there are occasions that we listen out of fear, because we are worried what would happen next. For example, you are at an airport, and suddenly you know that the airline has changed the gate. So let's say you are flying out of, let's say, gate number 4, and then there is an announcement that happens that this there is a change in the gate, and we will let you know in a while. So next time when that announcement is happening, you would be listening and ensuring that there is no other distraction, and you will be listening. Even there is so much of noise around, you will still be listening, because there is that fear that if I do not listen to the instruction, I may miss my flight, right? And yes, there are definitely occasions when we listen out of fear, but it should not happen always. Fear psychology works in the short term, does not work in the long term, right? And there are managers and there are leaders who have this style of managing and leading, that they drive fear into them, into the people, and people respond out of fear. But that is short lived. That cannot be a long term solution, right? So yes, at times we do listen out of fear. Was I able to answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Most welcome, Aparajit. I can see Shivam raise his hand. Shivam, your point?
Yes, sir. I want actually I didn't get this paraphrasing. So can you explain
So
this again?
paraphrasing is you are repeating what the other person is saying, right? For example, if I said that I would want to have a cup of tea, And if you want to check whether you have understood it correctly, you could paraphrase this as, Anand, if I heard you correctly, you are asking me to serve you a cup of tea. I'll say, yes, I would prefer to have a cup of tea. So that's paraphrasing, right? So just to ensure that you have understood what the other person has said, and there is no gap in that communication. And there is a beautiful website on paraphrasing. I'll share it with you in case any one of you is interested. So it's just paraphrasing what the other person is saying. Does that help you, Shivam?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, super. Let's move on. Right, listening requires us to reduce and ignore external distraction. How difficult is this in virtual setups? Even right now, many of you would be looking at a message. You may be looking at, okay, who won the toss between the match between Mumbai Indians and SRH. You may be doing multiple things. I can search the web for right. So just tap that search. So that's a distraction, right? So I said something and my phone picked it up, and Professor Google started speaking. So that's a live distraction that is just there, right? So there are so many distractions, but I'll have to say no to that distraction. And I was listening to a podcast. I use the app Spotify. Some of you may be using Spotify. You may be using different apps. I am not aware of the other apps, but I use Spotify, and there are some podcasts, and I listen to a lot of podcasts. And there is a podcast by Mindset Mentor. So you can go to Spotify, go to the podcast section and search for Mindset Mentor. And there is a series on focus. How do you stay focused? And in that, there is a part where he talks about distraction. And he used a word that distraction is also an attraction. And I just love that particular point. I heard this about maybe 1.5 years back, around that time. And from that time, it has become a very, very important word to me. And whenever I get distracted, I say that's an attraction. Don't get attracted to it. Stay focused. So you need to stay away from all those external distraction. My suggestion to you is, I know it's very difficult. Most of you will not do it, but nevertheless, let me still share it with you. Make sure that you have all the notifications on your mobile phone switched off. Don't have it on. Disable your notification, because every time the pop-up sound happens, you get distracted. And there's a research that says every time we get distracted from doing our work and then we come back doing our work, it takes about 20 minutes to get back to that same intensity of working. And there's one more research and study that says a 2.5 second distraction doubles the chances of an error or a mistake. Some of you who are driving, keep your mobile phones on the dashboard, and you see a message pop up and your screen lights up and you have taken your eyes off the road and you're looking at your phone, and by the time you come back on the road, it could be a disaster. How many road accidents happen? There are about 500 fatal accidents that happen on Indian roads. These are reported numbers. So let us stay away from distractions. Stay focused and keep all those distractions away. Even on your email, right? So make sure that you have the pop-up sound on your email disabled, because that's a distraction, right? And listening requires us to clear our mind and increase our focus on the person. Clear your mind. Listen to that person. No preconceived notions. And we will talk about this in detail when we do the barriers in communication section in this. Listen to that person. Don't have any preconceived notion, right? But we operate from that preconceived notion or that prejudice, right? And so I said a lot of stuff. I've been talking. How would you rate your listening skills? Yes, Shivam, I can see your hand raised.
Sir, can you repeat that 2.5 second statement again?
Yeah, so I will certainly do that, Shivam. Study says that when I get distracted, and that distraction could be as little as maybe 2.5 seconds, that distraction of 2.5 seconds doubles the chances of us making an error or a mistake. That's what I said, is what study says. And then the example that I followed it up with is when you're driving. Hence it is said, don't use your phone when you're driving. But today you see how people put their phone inside their helmet also. And in Ahmedabad, Surat, Baroda, Rajkot, right, it is so very, very difficult to drive because people come from everywhere and they are like this. And you would have seen people using a mobile phone even while filling fuel at a petrol station. You go and tell someone this is dangerous, they will say Taru Kamkar. So they're not listening because someone is challenging their core values. And the other thing that I have, not related to your question, but something that I have learned over a period of time, whenever you challenge someone when he or she knows that they have committed a mistake, you will see them getting very angry. देखिएगा आप note करना, when you know you are wrong and someone has caught you in that act, and someone is pointing that thing to you, we generally react because that's how we are, right? So anyways, coming back to the point, 2.5 or whatever, a distraction as little as 2 seconds could be fatal, and we need to avoid it. So would you rate your listening skills good, bad, average? How many of you would rate your listening skills as good? How many of you would rate your listening skills? Let's say I can see a message which says 6 out of 10. Okay, so I want in your mind to think about your listening skills and give yourself a score out of, let us say, 10. On a scale of 10, rate yourself whatever you would want to rate yourself, and let us see whether your rating matches with a test that I'm going to give you now. So please listen to the professor as he takes our test. Are you all ready for a test?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Right. So here is your, there are 2 parts to this test. This is the first part.
Hi and welcome. So you think you are a good listener then? A good communicator, and have good interpersonal skills? Well, you are in the right place to find out. I am going to say some stuff, talk for a while, and then ask you a question to see if you were listening. Are you ready? My name is Neil. I am 60 with 3 kids, Mary, John and Mick, and 2 grandkids, Dylan and Amber. Dylan is 6 and Amber is only 1. Dylan likes to play football and go on his pro BMX and pro scooter. He is a very funny and loving kid. Amber is only 1, so she is into everything, as everything is so new to her, and she just loves her big brother Dylan so much. So were you listening then? Here is the question. What is my name?
So what is that? What is his name? Hello, Neil. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Don't write it in the chat box because I prefer a voice coming, right? So, okay, next question. Thank you. You got that answer right.
Are you ready for the second one? Now listen carefully. I am at a dinner party. My wife and 3 other couples are present. We are in our friend's home. They always throw good dinner parties. Last time we were here, Jane, Pate's wife, drank so much wine, she ended falling asleep at the table. Meanwhile, the rest of us, still drinking wine, we're playing the cube. One of their children got it from Santa. I have to say it was such a laugh. I think we will be playing it again tonight. So were you listening? Well then here is the question. How many people were at the party?
How many people were there at the party?
Total 8.
Yeah, 8.
Okay.
8 people.
You name them?
8.
8 people.
Can you name them?
One is
Okay,
the
so
Jain,
not
another is
getting
male.
it. Sorry.
One is definitely Jain.
Correct.
One is
The other-
Mary, I guess.
Okay. Good, good. I like that interaction. I like that interaction. Would you want to take one more?
Yes.
Okay. So I could not sense that energy in that. Yes, but
Yes, yes.
let me still play it for.
Do you want to try another one? Listen careful, okay? The children were playing out on the road. The sun was shining that morning and everyone was happy. There was a smell of fresh cut grass, and I could hear lawn mowers close by. A neighbor's child approached me. Hi, she said. Hello, I said back. How are you? Grand, she said. You have got big over the winter. How old are you now? I asked her. 5, she said. How old are you now? She asked me. I laughed and said 30. No way. She said, you can't be that old. If you were that old you would be dead. Kids are great. But were you actually listening to me? The question is, what time of the day is it?
What's your answer to that question?
Morning, afternoon.
Afternoon time, morning.
Morning.
I see the same video played, and we are all listening to the same, but see our responses are all so different, right? And again, an example that you were wanting to listen what is being spoken, because I said, let me give you a test, and we all want to do well in a test. We all want to have the right answer. So you ensure that there's no distraction. Even if there was some noise in the room that you're sitting, you focused your energy to listen to what this professor was speaking. How I wish we could have the same energy and the same focus and the same intent to listen, to understand, and not just listen to reply more often in our life, right? So if anyone wants to take this test again, you can drop me a message. I will share the link of this video, and you can let me do it right away before I forget, because then I get into my work and then it becomes slightly difficult. Let me give me a second. So where do I find the chat here? Where is the chat? Yeah, here is the chat box. So let me just check if you got a message from me. Yes. Okay, great. Right. So you have the link for this particular video that I just played. Right. So you can take that full test whenever you have the time. Okay. So as I get deeper into this, are you ready to go deeper into this topic? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so here is a set of questions that I want to ask you. Listen to those questions, may not be listen to those questions, read those questions, and in your heart, give yourself a yes or a no as an answer. Be honest to yourself. Can I get an assurance that all of you will be honest to yourselves?
Yes, sir. Yes, definitely.
Sure,
Yeah.
sir.
Yes, sir.
And being honest to ourselves is a pretty challenging stuff, right? So here is the first of a few questions that will really challenge us as far as listening is concerned. The first, do you make assumptions about the person you're listening to. And you may want to change this question to say that, do I? So that you can internalize this question. And I'll give you about 10 seconds to reflect and get an answer for yourself. Second question. Do I?
Do we have to say the answers? No, no.
No, better. No, you don't have to say the answer. आप सिर्फ अपने लिए just answer it for yourself. Because this would be personal, and I would not want anyone to share their personal stuff on a call such as this, right? So you can just answer it for yourself. Or if you have a paper and pen, you may just want to note down your answer, capture your answer, yes or no. So can I go to the next question?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Great. Do I have prejudices, maybe occasional, about certain personality types? And personality types could be someone who's outgoing, someone who's shy, someone who speaks a lot, someone who does not speak a lot. And there are different personality types. I'm not getting the details of this, but do we make assumptions about certain personality types? If you're done thinking, may I go to the next question?
Yes, sir, please.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much. Do I find myself inwardly criticizing, commenting on what the other person has to say? A tough, reflective question. And if you have done thinking, may I go to the next question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Do I feel compelled to prove my point, especially when the other person is wrong on facts or ideas or anything else? These are some brilliant questions, and you will not get all these on Google, right? So hence it is important to attend sessions, learn from people who have spent a lot of time learning this, lost a lot of hair learning this, and read books. Please do not Google everything. Google is not the answer of everything. It can never replace books and experience. Okay, if you're done with this, allow me to ask you the next question. May I?
Please, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do I at times become hyper over situations or become over enthusiastic at times? With your permission, moving on to the next question. Do I frequently have something else on my mind? While the discussion is happening on a particular subject, my mind is somewhere else. Especially when your parents are suggesting something to you, what happens? With your permission, let me move to the next question. Do I become too busy to listen? Multitasking is a myth. So you cannot say, okay, आप बोलो मैं सुन रहा हूं, and then you're also texting to someone. Sorry, does not happen. Do I become too busy to listen? And I think so. We are most of the time. With your permission, the next question. Do I feel too tired to listen? Mental stamina, very important. And especially young boys and girls, as you grow into professional life, be ready for some tough times. And you need, and I need to build mental stamina. With your permission, the next set of few questions. Do I find people boring and repetitive and feel turned out due to lack of interest? Difficult question. Let's go deeper into this. With your permission, the next question. Do I easily get impatient? Remember the emotional trigger that Gagandeep was mentioning? And how do you listen when you're impatient? Listening requires a lot of patience. And if you remember the acronym LISTEN, the T alphabet was take all the time. We covered that acronym last Saturday. With your permission, the next question. Do I nurse an ego, though not consciously? Tough questions. If you have finished thinking about this, with your permission, let me share the next question. Do I daydream and allow my mind to wander off? This is the first dose. We are going to have a lot of questions. As I promised you that I will try to make it as practical, pragmatic, real as possible, right? And I wish someone had given these inputs to me when I was starting my career. I would have saved a few relationships that I lost because of my inability to listen. Because listening, no one has taught me. Listening as a skill, no one has taught you. Hence, we need to learn how to listen. We hear, we don't listen. Okay, so I'll just pause for a while. Would want some responses, reflections from some of you as you thought through these set of 12 questions. Were they interesting? Were they deep, penetrative questions?
Yes, Avi, very deep questions. For example,
Yes,
one question is do you feel mentally tired? Right. So yes, I have found that when a person is someone who likes to speak a lot, at that time I feel that way. So I need to think in each and every question that whether it is true or not, at what extent.
That's right. Thank you for being honest, Kapil. Thank you for that honesty. Yeah, so true, so true, so true. Anyone else?
Yes, sir. These questions were designed very well, especially from the focus point of self-awareness, because listening is the thing that we do mostly unconsciously. So these were making me conscious about my points, that what I do and what I don't, especially
And
about listening. So thank you for designing these questions so
thank you for listening to me as I was sharing these questions to you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
pleasure.
Super, right? So
Maybe can I add one point? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, yes, please, Gagan.
Oh, so one thing that you very rightly pointed out about multitasking. Multitasking is an absolute myth. In fact, research says that our brain can focus only on one thing at a time, and the more we tend to multitask, the lesser our gray cells, gray matter become, and as a result, good multitaskers eventually become worse multitaskers. So
That's right.
and in today's corporate world, a lot of managers, they look for multitasking as a skill, which I don't think is very appropriate. So I would urge, all the people to not develop that skill. Just focus on one thing at a time. uh, Bring it to a stable state. If you feel that you need to switch to a task, bring it to a stable state from where you can pick it up later. But multitasking does not exist, like you rightly pointed out. So yeah, thank you.
Agree. Agree. Thank you. Thank you, Gaganji, for bringing a research and a study angle to it. And hence, boys and girls, please don't text and walk. Please don't text while you are on a staircase. Please don't use your mobile phones when you are driving. Very dangerous. Very, 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 very dangerous, right? And thank you for that, Gagan. And so to summarize what we said, let's look at this particular slide. Do you agree? If yes, why? Can you share some of your thoughts on this?
Yes, yes.
And I think so. This is what Pragati, if I got her name correct, was trying to share when she shared her thought on the set of 12 questions. It is something that we all need to practice. And I need to be conscious about where do I stand in terms of listening skills. And I hope these 12 questions would have opened up some of your blind spots, saying that, okay, I don't think I am as good a listener as I should be. And hopefully you will start that journey of becoming a good listener starting today and starting now. Let me play an amazing video, one of the best that I could find to share with all of you. As you listen to this video, it's a part of a TED Talk. So not playing the whole TED Talk. Uh, I have just kind of cropped a bit of that and sharing with you. Make notes as you listen to this amazing video, as we are on time to finish the session at 8. I can see someone's hand raised. Acharya, if I got your name correctly.
Sir, Meet.
Yes, yes, beta, yes.
Sir, sir, I have a question.
Ji.
Sir, on social media, we most of the industrialist people, employee, they try to chat and they attend a video meeting. So we have to listen, and some I think so, sir, irritates the irritating the people are irritating there. Sir, how to recover?
Okay, so if I understood your question correctly, is if you are on a social media platform and listening to some industry leaders and there are others who are irritating, how do you respond to that? Is that your question? Did I understand it correctly?
Yeah, sir.
So if all that you can do is not allow yourself to get irritated, because you may not have control of that online session. You may not have the access to unmute yourself because there are a lot of sessions that happen online where only the speaker has the access to speak. As attendees, we can only listen. We can maybe write something in the chat box. At best, you can suggest people to stay focused upon the point that has been discussed, and you can write a message to them, and ensure that you don't get distracted by those people who are saying something that is irritating you, right? So like Gagandeep said, don't let that emotional trigger cause an emotional imbalance in you. Stay balanced and focus upon the speaker, focus upon the content, focus upon the context, focus upon the intent with which that piece of information is being shared. So concentrate, focus. Very,
Sir,
very important.
sir, and at last, today I have faced just one thing that on one of my friend, he's a senior, he is a head of the factory. He tried to fool me on social media. So how to react that
Don't
to
react.
that person?
That's a good question, right?
And
So
then
if someone is trying to fool you, just ignore that person, because again, I'm not a very active person on social media, so I don't allow myself to be get fooled or
sir,
irritated by
what he is telling that I will give you dog, and then he just in our frame, our mind frame, uh, it will be possible that the dog will came and I am happy and all this. So the mind is activated that dog is coming, and we are very motivated. But they are giving, the other person give excuses. From 3 days, he is giving excuses.
So again, my friend, please verify the credibility of the people who make all those promises, right? And yeah, so those are very tricky situations. While that has very little to do with listening, it has to do with your own inclination towards what is being offered. So who is offering what to you? Please ensure that you are listening to people who have a credible track record. Please understand, social media, most of the news, most of what happens, in my opinion, I may be wrong, I'm just sharing my personal perspective, it is fake.
Okay, sir.
Right? And hence I don't watch news. I'm not on any social media platform. I want to stay focused upon what is the real, stay in the real world, get out of the virtual world as far as possible. So that's my input to you, right? And so be very careful before you give your
Definitely.
bank details to someone, before you give your account details to someone. Never click on a link that you may receive via an SMS. Very, very dangerous. People will siphon off your money like this, and cyber crimes have increased multiple fold over the last 1 year. And cyber crimes on the phone is increasing at a rapid pace because we are negligent and we get trapped and lured into those temptations, right? So stay away from that. I can see a couple of hands raised. May I request you to let me complete this video and then I take up your question? Will that be okay? Will that be okay, or you would want to share it now?
Okay with that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So please keep a pen and paper ready as we listen to a fantastic video.
We are losing our listening. We spend roughly 60% of our communication time listening, but we're not very good at it.
we retain just 25% of what we hear. Now, not you, not this talk, but that is generally true. Let's define listening as making meaning from sound. It's a mental process.
Could anyone tell
and it's
me
a
what you understood by this statement? Listening is making meaning from sound. Quick, 60 seconds. Couple of answers.
It's just the difference between hearing and listening.
These
I
are
would say.
vibrations which come to us.
Good.
We make a meaning out of it. The meaning can be different for each.
That's right, Aparajita. I agree with you. Yes.
Sir, the one I'm listening, it might be different for me, and the same thing you might be listening, it can be different for you. So it is how we take that particular thing in our life.
That's right. I like the way you articulated, right? Because of paucity of time, let me move forward in this video. But I would want all of you to think about this statement that listening is making meaning from sound. And as one of you so rightly said, that could be, I'm not saying is, I'm using the word could be, the difference between hearing and listening. And we're going to build upon this topic, that what differentiates listening from hearing next Saturday.
Process of extraction. We use some pretty cool techniques to do this. One of them is pattern recognition. So in a cocktail party like this, if I say, David, Sarah, pay attention, some of you just sat up. We recognize patterns to distinguish noise from signal, and especially our name. Differencing is another technique we use. If I left this pink noise on for more than a couple of minutes, you would literally cease to hear it. We listen to differences, we discount sounds that remain the same. And then there is a whole range of filters. These filters take us from all sound down to what we pay attention to. Most people are entirely unconscious of these filters, but they actually create our reality in a way because they tell us what we're paying attention to right now. I'll give you one example of that. Intention is very important in sound, in listening. When I married my wife, I promised her that I would listen to her every day as if for the first time. Now that's something I fall short of on a daily basis. But it's a great intention to have in a relationship. But that's not all. Sound places us in space and in time. If you close your eyes right now in this room, you're aware of the size of the room from the reverberation and the bouncing of the sound off the surfaces. And you're aware of how many people are around you because of the micro noises you're receiving. And sound places us in time as well, because sound always has time embedded in it. In fact, I would suggest that our listening is the main way that we experience the flow of time from past to future. So, sonority is time and meaning, a great quote. I said at the beginning, we're losing our listening. Why did I say that? Well, there are a lot of reasons for this. First of all, we invented ways of recording. First, writing, then audio recording, and now video recording as well. The premium on accurate and careful listening has simply disappeared. Secondly, the world is now so noisy, with this cacophony going on visually and auditorily, it's just hard to listen. It's tiring to listen. Many people take refuge in headphones, but they turn big public spaces like this, shared soundscapes, into millions of tiny little personal sound bubbles. In this scenario, nobody's listening to anybody. We're becoming impatient. We don't want oratory anymore, we want sound bites. And the art of conversation is being replaced, dangerously, I think, by personal broadcasting. I don't know how much listening there is in this conversation, which is sadly very common, especially in the UK. We're becoming desensitized. Our media have to scream at us with these kind of headlines in order to get our attention. And that means it's harder for us to pay attention to the quiet, the subtle, the understated. This is a serious problem that we're losing our listening. This is not trivial, because listening is our access to understanding. Conscious listening always creates understanding, and only without conscious listening can these things happen. A world where we don't listen to each other at all is a very scary place indeed. So I'd like to share with you 5 simple exercises, tools you can take away with you to improve your own conscious listening. Would you like that? Good.
Okay, so that's 8 o'clock. Just a few seconds to 8 o'clock. I will want to pause here, and that could be a motivation for you to attend the session next Saturday. 5 points, fantastic points. We will learn on listening, right? So, any thoughts, suggestions? Did you like this 90-minute interaction that we had? Is this helping you?
Yes, sir. It was indeed very nice session. So, just
Thank you.
in the next session, I would like if you tell us what if we are speaking in front of a group of people and you see somebody who is not interested and they are moving their body, moving their legs, and you immediately come to know, okay, this person is not interested in what I'm speaking, this person is distracted, but still you are getting distracted by the gesture of that person, but still you need to continue whatever you are speaking. In that case, what we should do? So I would like you to highlight a bit in this in the next session with you.
I will certainly do that, because even as you were speaking, I was able to picturize so many sessions that I've taken where similar things have happened, and it happens all the time. So I will share with you what I do in those situations. Certainly would cover that. But that's a very practical question. I'll certainly do that. Let me also write down my number, because some of you may or may not have my contact details. So like Aparajita had to search me everywhere before she got my contact details, right? So this does not happen to anyone else. So sharing both my numbers with you, and also sharing my personal email ID with you, so that in case you would want to stay connected, you can definitely stay in touch. Okay, so I can see Hantesh Kumar sir. Namaskar. Good evening, sir. How are you? So nice to have you on the
Yeah, good evening very much, sir. How are you? Good to hear you always. In fact, it's always a great learning. The more I hear you, the more I feel that I know very less. In fact, so you try to actually start thinking lot. See, so many things to learn, and I think so. To what I feel really, that to say yes to important things, you'll have to say no to many other things. And I don't know. I don't want to add right now anything. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And for those who may not know, Hantesh sir is a very, very senior person in Reliance. And if a person at his stature, at his level, is learning, just imagine all of you young boys and girls, how much more vigor, energy, zest, zeal, vitality we should have towards learning, right? And there's so much that we can learn from Hantesh Kumar sir, and the kind of attitude that he has towards learning is inspiring for me, and I'm sure to all the youngsters on the call, right? And keep learning. That is my input to you, because some of you think that you have finished your graduation, hence it's over. Yes, your education is over with your graduation, but the learning starts. The learning never ends, right? And Hantesh sir is a role model in that.
No, sir. Thank you so much, sir. In fact, I've been relearning. Just to add certain words. Sorry, just interrupting in between. What you just said, that learn with learning, or the degree learning, we can earn a living basically. But if you think on materialistic terms also, you earn a fortune.
That's right.
If you actually learn it throughout your life. That's all.
Super. Thank you, Hantesh sir. Thank you so much, right? And thank you for that addition.
Abhi,
yes, sir.
In your session, you have clearly mentioned and also told that. But once again, I would like to emphasize that once we listen patiently to anyone, then that will develop a lot of good qualities in ourselves. Lot of good quality, and that is the really a byproduct. You told respect and so many things, relationship. So that is one of the best quality of communication, we can say, listening.
That's right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And for those who may not know Hasmukh Bhai retired from Reliance a few months back, and he also has served Reliance at a very senior position for a very, very long time. And Hantesh sir and Hasmukh sir are examples, role models for each one of us to look up to and ensure that we don't give up our urge and our energy and our inclination to learn, right? And learning should never stop. And both of them are living examples for each one of us. Thank you, sir, for that input. Yes, Akshara.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Most welcome, sir.